Speaker and has done some civil society work in the space. He joins us on the line. Doc, thank you very much for your time. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
I hope you're well.
I'm well, thank you.
First, your observations of what transpired in Parliament. Can excuses be made for the actions of the members of Parliament yesterday?
As the Deputy Minority Whip himself said yesterday, this is embarrassing, even though he says the embarrassment is on the majority. But I think that the embarrassment is on the entire institution and all those who belong to that institution. Not have a chaotic parliament. Everybody is watching whatever transpires in parliament. And I thought that if there were any disagreements or any kind of issues that needed to be addressed, dialogue and conversation and compromise should normally be the kind of decent way in all democracies. What happened yesterday, and I believe is going to continue today, is an eyesore. And I hope the leadership of Parliament will find a way to avoid, a repeat of what we saw yesterday.
And who takes the blame?
Well, I think I don't know who takes the blame, but certainly the minority group has a lot of questions to answer. The majority also has some questions to answer. But more broadly, and I think if we have to put this entire thing in context, it all boils down to the fact that we live in a country where the political class doesn't trust the judiciary. Because where there's a lot of trust for the judiciary, whatever is coming from the courts, I believe another branch of government will respect it. We're in this country in the 8th Parliament when the NDC had all kinds of issues with the judiciary at the time. And now all of a sudden it's the MPP that has issues with the judiciary. I mean, what does that tell us as a country? I think that that's the bigger issue that we need to address. Because if there's conflict in our electoral process, conflict even in Parliament, I think the last stop for addressing those issues is the judiciary. I mean, they act as the arbiters and so on. But I think recent history has shown us that, both parties, depending on where they stand, they either trust or don't trust the judiciary. And this is the big problem that needs to be addressed in this country.
Well, the majority has insisted in all its accounts from various members that if you look at, even if you were watching, you see that at every point in time, the provocation always came from the minority side. In fact, they had decided that none of them from their side will speak because they feel, because of how they feel about what had happened in KPANDAI and the declaration of a vacancy, the letter that had been written by the clerk to the EC, among others, that they should not be blamed for anything. And it was the minority who even moved to their side. All they attempted to do is to try to catch the eye of the speaker so that they can be heard. From what you watch, don't they have a point?
Well, I don't know whether the majority has a point or the minority has a point and so on. But I think for me, the analysis I'm making is, let's go to the root. what is triggering all these things. Again, let me just repeat. In the eighth parliament, when the Right Honorable Speaker Babwin declared those seats vacant, we saw what happened. We saw how the court got involved, and we saw the reaction of the NDC at the time. And now the tables have turned, and we are seeing almost similar kind of reaction. So for me, that is because if we focus on the symptoms, we are not addressing the problem. Because what happened on the floor yesterday, I mean, it was just a trigger. But let's go back to the root. I think the political class need to have a conversation and find a way of making sure that we have a judiciary in this country that we trust. Otherwise, you see the spate of coup d'etats in our sub-region. I mean, our country is not immune. It's not immune at all. Because if they sit there in parliament and they cannot agree, somebody will get up and say, look, these people that we voted for, they can't agree, they can't run this country. I mean, let's, do something else. Just 2 days ago, I mean, Benin nearly fell. I mean, we are not a special country. So I think both sides, the political class, in this case, those in parliament and the other branches of government, I think they need to sit down and make sure that, these kinds of aberrations don't continue to occur in our country. Because otherwise, I mean, I guess we all wait to write the history.
And for you, what's the best way of addressing this?
Well, the best way of addressing this, I mean, in a parliamentary system, there is no alternative to dialogue. The Right Honorable Speaker and the leadership, I think, will need to address this. Because, see, the Speaker finds himself in a very difficult situation. I mean, we all know where he belongs. But when he sits on that chair, he has a responsibility to be a neutral arbiter. And his role, and in most democracies, first and foremost, is to protect the rights of the minority so that the minority can get a voice, whilst at the same time making sure that, the majority has a say. He also has a role, of course, through with the leadership, to make sure that, there's dialogue at all times so that issues that are difficult to address on the floor, are addressed through dialogue. And that's why every now and then when tensions rise, you go into conclave. Just so that at least at that place, appeals can be made, egos can be managed, and all those things. There's no other way. There's no other way. Because, see, if it is just one person that is rowdy in the house, maybe you can use the marshals, you can use the security to get the person out. But how are you going to carry, 80-something people out of the house? So that is where the situation becomes a bit tricky. And the only way out, I believe, is to find a way to sit down and talk. As we saw in the 8th Parliament, in a democracy, you can't get your way 100%. You can only do that in a dictatorship. So there has to be some give and take. What is NDC going to give? What is MPP going to give? And then we can have some middle ground. The NDC, the majority side has adopted a strategy where they are ignoring the noise and going about the business of the house. Well, I think that's one good strategy. And then when it comes to a vote, of course, they have the numbers. But you don't want chaotic scenes every day in the house. That is not for our image as a country.
In fact, you have already indicated that we may see the same scenes probably today, but you're saying you expect the speaker to intervene to ensure that does not happen today.
Yes, I just hope they can go into some conversations before the House convenes. And hopefully, if some cool heads prevail, if some compromises. I mean, like I said, in a democracy, you can't get everything 100%. That's only possible in a dictatorship where a military strongman will say this is the decree. This is a democracy, and they all have to realize that at some point there needs to be some give and take, and we saw that happen in the eighth parliament. It's very difficult, sometimes unpleasant, but that's the only way out. Otherwise, we don't want somebody to get up with a gun and say these are our leaders are not able to sort our problems out, and maybe some other kind of system is needed to be able to address our challenges.
But you talk about the majority strategy, the minorities approach. For you, was it the best way to go about this if they actually wanted to be heard?
No, honestly, I mean, I don't think that's the best way. I've said this already. Because we don't want chaos and rowdiness in our parliament. But I don't know whether, in their opinion, they think that that's the best kind of tool that's available to them. Maybe they can answer that. But there's nowhere. We didn't vote for members of parliament to go and shout in the house and then, make the work of the house not possible. No. But I mean, like I'm telling you, what triggered all these things, and that is where I think we need to focus our attention. Otherwise, if the root causes are not addressed, we will keep seeing this. Maybe the tables will turn someday, and then it will be the NDC that's on the other side, and we will see the same thing repeated. We want them to go and have a decent conversation. Let the power of, the strength of your argument win the day. Even if it doesn't win the day with the vote, it can win the hearts of Ghanaians. So that is my appeal to the minority side as well.
Because I was speaking to a member of the minority this morning, and it seems he said they are frustrated at the fact that ultimately they were going to lose anyway if they allowed the majority to even have a say. That's why they decided that they would not let the majority leader or the whip speak. So it's out of frustration. What do you think should be their approach to addressing these kind of issues?
Well, I mean, you see, they can be frustrated as much as they want. When the conversations, proceed, it will get to a point where a decision has to be made, either by the speaker, where it falls, within his space, or by votes. And so, if it is a matter of voting, they are definitely going to lose. If it's a matter of the speaker making a decision, well, that one we don't know where, that decision might fall. But what they are doing on the floor is not sustainable. Yeah, it's not sustainable because you might get to a point where, assuming that the first deputy speaker is presiding, we know that he's an MP and he belongs to the NDC. He's a sitting MP. He can decide maybe take a different approach and put the question, and maybe whatever is being discussed, call for a vote, and we know what would happen when that approach is adopted. So, again, going back, we all know they don't have the numbers. That one, nobody needs to repeat that. They need to just sit down and dialogue. I think that's the only way out. Not only for their own image and the image of the institution, but I think they should keep in mind the current situation in the sub-region. ECOWAS has just declared a state of emergency in the entire sub-region. Do we know why ECOWAS is doing this? And these are the kind of things that trigger, the adventurism that we see, in especially in our sub-region, So I just think that whatever they are doing, they will have the bigger picture in mind. That is both sides, and in particular, the minority. Because when the noise, keeps going on and on and on, the immediate conclusion people would make is that, oh, this has become ungovernable. And is that what we want?
Well, let me conclude by reading a comment from you. And I see a couple of people clearly disagree with you. This is Kwabna Ofosu Apia says, and I disagree with the gentleman. It has never been the matter of minority rights having to be protected. It is the matter of one party always wanting to have their way, the way of the NPP. How do you respond to that?
Well, I don't have any response to that. I mean, that person has his opinion, so maybe let him keep his opinion. I was just telling you that, you know, in parliamentary practice, the role of any speaker is first and foremost to protect the rights of the minority. I mean, go to the literature, tell the person to go to the literature and go and read. So I'm just saying that, you know, if based on your question, how do we get out of this? Said the speaker has a role to protect the rights of the minority to be heard, whilst at the same time not, you know, losing the sight of the fact that the majority should, I mean, have his way. And then the speaker also has a responsibility to make sure that at least there is dialogue at all times, because even in normal times there are disagreements, and you always see sitting suspended. Let's go into conclave. The purpose of that is to go and negotiate and let cool heads prevail, and then they come back. We've seen many times when things like that have happened, and then tension has disappeared. So that's all I'm saying. I mean, I'm not supporting the MPP or the NDC. I'm just making my analysis. So if the person doesn't like MPP, that is their problem.
Doc, thank you. Thank you for speaking to us.
Okay.
He's Executive Director, African Center for Parliamentary Affairs. Join us on the line. Like I said, he's been monitoring our parliament for a while now. We'll need to take a break. When we come back, we'll pick your calls on this issue. What do you think?
Gasa, bo, gasa.